Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, but we challenge. And if this is our Destroy Media Narratives, I'm George Szamuely. And I just want to do a short podcast now on the dramatic events of the past 24 hours, namely the Israeli assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. As you know, this was a massive bombing attack in Beirut. Israel clearly used massive bunker buster bombs that it got from the United States. Israel has obviously been targeting Nasrallah for some time. And this assassination comes on top of a series of assassinations that Israel has carried out in Lebanon, starting all the way back in July when it murdered a top Hezbollah commander, Fuad Shakur. We also know, of course, the killing of the Haniya, the sort of Hamas leader in Tehran, and then of course we had very recently the pager attack, followed by the walkie-talkie attack, and then followed by a series of assassinations of top Hezbollah commanders. So, as things stand, Hezbollah is in disarray. They obviously, all of their top commanders have been wiped out, and they have to be really at their most vulnerable right now. Obviously, I mean, these are very early days. It was just a few hours after it's happened, but we can draw a few conclusions. Clearly, Hezbollah's extraordinary passivity and lack of response to Israel's escalated assassinations. They didn't respond to the July assassination of Fuad Shakur. They didn't really respond to the pager attacks and the walkie-talkie attacks. Didn't respond to the killing of the top commanders earlier in the week. Along with Iran's passivity over the murder of Hamas leader Haniya a little while ago, has only encouraged Israel to go further and further. And now they basically did the biggest prize of all, namely the killing of Nasrallah, who has been the public face of Hezbollah now for decades. I mean, he has a huge reputation, a huge following in the Middle East. And now he was obviously thought to be invulnerable precisely on account of his public standing. But Israel showed, no, we're going to take him out. Now, so that's obviously one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that clearly Hezbollah had been thoroughly infiltrated, absolutely infiltrated through and through by Israel. So all of the stories about Hezbollah's extraordinary secrecy and security, and nobody can get through to them. It's like one like going through a castle, and there's one moat after another. You can't possibly get through to Hezbollah. Well, Israel did it, and did it very quickly. And the shocking thing is that even in light of what happened with the pager attacks, when it was clear what Israel was doing, Israel is clearly targeting Hezbollah leaders. Hezbollah seemed to make no real attempt to beef up its security, and made no attempt to move out, get away from any place in danger, since they knew that Israel was clearly tracking them. So you have to think, why would Nasrallah be such a sitting duck for Israel? So that's another thing. I mean, again, why this extraordinary passivity? I mean, Hezbollah launched this kind of mini war against Israel in support of Hamas fighting against Israel in Gaza. It was not much of a war, but it was something. It was more than anyone else was doing, but it was very minor. And Nasrallah made clear that he intended to keep it very low key. The problem was that Israel didn't intend to keep it low key. Israel seized on this this Hezbollah attacks as an opportunity to get even with the organization. So that plan of maintaining a low-key war, okay, well, we were not going to escalate. We don't really want a full-scale war with Israel. Well, that plan has failed. So Hezbollah chose to fight low-key. Israel decided to escalate and decided to wipe out the Hezbollah leadership. With Hezbollah in such disarray, you'd have to think that this would certainly be an opportunity for Israel to launch an invasion of Lebanon and seize southern Lebanon and use that as essentially as a buffer zone, occupy it, and essentially that would provide Israel with the security for its northern border. Before we'd been wary of predicting that Israel would do this because of Hezbollah, the ferocious resistance that Israel would likely meet, and therefore Israel was unlikely to do it. But now with Hezbollah leadership in disarray, this would obviously be the opportune time to launch an invasion. Maybe move up to the Litani River, and that's it. And that there becomes just Israeli occupied territory, and that will provide security for the Israel's northern villages. So I think that could well happen. The other thing is, how will Iran respond to this? Because, of course, Hezbollah is a key ingredient of Iran's great power projection, or at least, great power by Middle East standards projection. With Hezbollah gone, Iran really doesn't have too much going for it. I mean, there are obviously the various fighters in Iraq. There's obviously the Houthis, but they're nothing like as formidable as Hezbollah was, and so that Iran is now much diminished, and indeed Iran now becomes very much vulnerable because Iran now would be in Israel's crosshairs, and Israel is now riding high. It's done what nobody thought that it would do, which is to take out Hezbollah's leaders, take out the great Nasrallah, and so why not provoke a war in Tehran? We know that Israel is quite capable of conducting assassinations in Iran. It did that with the Hamas leader Haniyeh a little while ago. So Israel again absolutely prepared to carry out assassinations within Iran and provoke a war with Iran. Now, you would have to then say that if Iran intends to remain a player in the region, then it's going to have to respond to Israel. It can't just play the same game that it had been playing up until now, and the Hezbollah has been playing this very minor resistance. It's not working. It's clear that Israel is playing for keeps. Israel is being very serious. So Iran's going to have to do something, because otherwise Israel is going to pick it off. I mean, in no time at all, Israel is going to do either terrorist incidents within Tehran or just simply carry out assassinations of Iran's leaders. Obviously with a view to provoking a war with Iran, in which case the United States gets involved, and that's obviously what Israel wants to see done. So that's, I think, something that's on the cards. I don't think Iran can just simply sit around waiting in the way it's being done, because if you wait, Israel's going to come after you. So that's that aspect. The other aspect is, of course, what about Hezbollah's vaunted missile armory? We've been hearing about how Hezbollah has something like 100,000 missiles. They could just launch them against Israel, overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome system, and later waste Israel. Well, to be honest, I'm not buying it. We haven't seen any evidence of it, and I'll believe it when I see it. So I suspect it's like everything else about Hezbollah. There's been a lot of exaggeration, a lot of wishful thinking on the part of the alternative media, who have been selling us a bill of goods for a long time. And I think what has happened in the past few weeks, essentially puts to rest a lot of these wild exaggerations about Hezbollah's prowess and about Iran's great power emergence. None of that has happened. But I think we're going to see, in the next few days, what happens next. But what should I say is the most foolish looking people of all are the Americans, because remember, this is what Netanyahu did at a time when the Americans were claiming that there was some serious ceasefire negotiations going on. Imagine saying all this, that there were these ceasefire negotiations while Israel was planning this massive attack on the Hezbollah leaders, in much the same way as they were going on and on about these ceasefire negotiations with Hamas, and then Israel then took out the political leader of Hamas while he was in Tehran. So again, the Biden administration looks absolutely ridiculous, and the way they continue to go on, particularly Kamala Harris, we've got to get a deal done. We've got to get a deal done. We've got a deal. We're on the brink of a deal. You're not on the brink of anything. And clearly, Israel has no intention of stopping or coming to any kind of an agreement or anything. So that's out. But just to say that we'll see in the next few days whether Hezbollah really has anything up its sleeve, when it has the missiles in order to force Israel to pay a price for what it's done. Because remember, Hezbollah's huge reputation has come about through this universal belief that they have this massive armory of missiles that they can just unleash on Israel. So huge would this attack be that Israel's vaunted Iron Dome system would be overwhelmed, and Hezbollah would be able to sort of pretty much wipe Israel off the map. Well, we'll see. How much, if any, of it is true. I don't think they, whatever is left of Hezbollah, I don't think they can wait around and see what Israel's going to do next, because we know what Israel's going to do next. Whoever is still living will be targeted next. And so we'll see whether the axis of resistance, it has any real basis to it at all. We'll see what Iran does. We'll see what the remnants of Hezbollah will do. But you'd have to say that however much we all dislike Israel and what it's doing, how it comports itself in the world, you'd have to admit that this was a bold coup. It wasn't what anyone was expecting. All the talk had been, and some of the people who had come on, the gaggle was that Israel would launch an invasion. Israel was launching an invasion. I was always skeptical of that, because I didn't think that they would want to have two ground wars at the same time. I think Israel must be exhausted from the fight against Hamas, which has now been going on for a year. And then, on top of that, they'd have this terrible war in Lebanon. I just didn't think it was likely. What I didn't expect was how the tactics that Israel used, which was to decapitate Hezbollah. This was obviously a very carefully planned operation. This is obviously has been in the works for months, and we'll see whether it accomplishes anything. I mean, Israel's long-term project is still very, very dubious. I mean, you can't survive ultimately when everyone in your neighborhood hates you. So it's not a long-term viable project. But in the meantime, Israel can wreak havoc. So if the worst comes to the worst and there's war with Iran, then we could have a very serious fight on our hands, because I think America would get involved in a war between Israel and Iran, and that's so, which itself is quite extraordinary that the Americans. I don't think they knew that this was coming. This assassination of Nasrallah was coming. But again, as always, the Americans will have to live with the consequences, and ordinary Americans who may find themselves the victims of terrorist attacks will have to live with these consequences. Anyway, just a short update. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of more developments over the weekend. We'll see what happens, and we'll obviously update if need be, and then we'll do our usual podcast on Sunday. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll look forward to talking soon. All the best. Bye-bye.